All right, today we have a 97 Porsche Boxster in, and it has a PO410 and P1411, which means that bank 1 and bank 2 secondary air is not flowing. We pulled up a diagram of how this system operates. The first thing that we already verified is that the secondary air pump turns on when you start the car and the car's cold. And we have a vacuum line here, a vacuum reservoir here. We have a distribution valve that goes to the cylinder heads. We have a pump, and then also an air changeover valve, which is right here. What can make bank 1 and bank 2 not flow any secondary air? Basically any of these, but we're not looking for something that will just affect it singularly. The first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we have a vacuum source at the intake manifold. So number 7 right here that goes to the air intake system, we want to verify and make sure that we have a good vacuum source there. We want to make sure that the same number vacuum, the vacuum source, the same number, however many inches of vacuum you're going to watch with your gauge, is at number 3, at the input to number 3, which is our electric changeover valve. You could kind of skip this step and you can go all the way to the connection at number 2 as long as you know a couple things. Number 3 is activated at the same time number 1 is activated. Number 1 is activated when the car's cold, the engine is at ambient temp. It can't be colder than -10 degrees out. So it has to be just like a regular day in San Diego. Engine's cooled off from an overnight sitting. And then the secondary air pump will turn on the next time you go to start the car. When the DME commands this pump to turn on, the DME at the same time commands number 3 to open. And all it's doing is it's letting the flow of vacuum come from number 7 through this line, through this reservoir, up to this point where it plugs into the air changeover valve. What you want to do is when you start the car, just have this disconnected, start the car and verify that you have the same vacuum that you do at the source. If you do that, then you've just checked all these connections through this line, through this reservoir, through this T, this Y vacuum T, through the number 3 electric changeover valve, and all the way over to the air changeover valve. You've also tested that the DME gives the signal to the electric changeover valve. So you've checked a bunch of things by checking the vacuum here. It lasts for 60 seconds or less is how long the vacuum is applied to this. So once you have vacuum applied to this, you want to make sure that the air changeover valve is actually opening. This is where we had a problem with this car. The air changeover valve was not opening. It wasn't holding any vacuum at all. So we apply vacuum to number 2. So now we disconnect it from the line. Then we put it onto the air changeover valve. We tried to pull a vacuum on it and it would not hold a vacuum at all. So we knew that the air door was not opening. If the air, this is what closes off the secondary air from going open and closed. We knew that number 1 was turning on. We knew that we were applying vacuum all the way up here to number 2. Number 2 was not opening. So from that point, we can't check number 4 or 5 or any other restrictions through the cylinder head. So right now we're going to go access number 2. If you see the brand new shiny silver thing through that intake manifold, there's a couple different ways to access it. You can take it out through the intake manifold side if you want to take the intake manifold runners out, or you could take the alternator off through the front and then you can sneak your hand right through here. Either way is fine. They both take about the same amount of time. So we are going to install that, put the alternator back in, put the belt back on, and then we're going to start it and run it. We can follow the trail of where our secondary air is going. And ultimately, we want to watch the O2 sensors drop way down because they're going to get essentially too much oxygen, because that's how a secondary air system works. We have the new valve installed in the 97 Boxster. So now the question is, did we fix it? Did we fix the car? So what we're going to do is we're going to watch bank 1 sensor 1 O2 sensor, and we're also going to watch bank 2 sensor 1 O2 sensor. We want to watch these O2 sensors drop down to 0. Once we start the engine's cold right now, we want to hear that the secondary air pump turns on. We want to verify that everything with the DME is working, O2 sensor monitoring and everything. As soon as we know that the O2 sensors drop down to 0, we have secondary air flow. The switching valve opened, the secondary air valve, the pump turned on, everything flowed through the exhaust system. The O2 sensors got too much oxygen, and they're going to report that. Here we go. We're going to fire it up. We're gonna watch these numbers represent bank 1 sensor 1. Here's bank 2 sensor 1, and that graph represents that. We can see right now what's happening live right in front of us is the O2 sensors are falling. They are losing voltage. That's what we want to see. We want to see a loss of voltage. That means the exhaust system is too lean right now, which is what we want. Exhaust system is getting too much oxygen. That means the catalytic converter will get hotter faster. So we can see we're hovering on our bank 2 is already at 0. Bank 1 is almost at 0, 0.02. And then what we're going to do, so they are both at 0 now. We can call that a theoretic 0. That is very good. The secondary air pump is on, everything opened. There is secondary air flowing because the O2 sensors are pegged at 0 right now. Now wait just a second, and we're gonna watch when it turns off, then the O2 sensors are going to start switching. I just heard the pump turn off. Audibly, I heard the pump turn off. Right then and there, you saw the O2 sensor go up. It was not lean any longer. And then we are getting a switching O2 sensor on bank 1 and 2. The secondary air is fixed on this car just by watching this post data. Got any questions? Give me a comment.